Hi, I'm Grace Lynch. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, title of it, I'm calling Addiction as Agency. Um, One of the most unexpected surprises of my recovery life from brain rehab was to hit upon the idea of using powerlessness over alcohol and drugs as uh, unresolvable um, dynamic against which to explore parts of myself that were out of line with how I actually needed to be. Um, that probably sounds like a really weird idea, but um, it was a very difficult turning point for me to get an understanding of alcoholism and addiction as something I couldn't have power over because my drive to control went all the way down to the foundations of my safety system. And so what I found was that for most of my recovery life, for probably the first 20 something years until I went through brain rehab and synced back up again, and then I could finally sort of put together inside and outside worlds and have my own way of language and expressing myself that was the same. Then I found that my early recovery had been largely based on a very subtle kind of control, which was a sort of confidence and entitlement and privilege to decide what my alcoholism was, understand it, and then in approaching all the steps, all my experiences of understanding my powerlessness, understanding unmanageability, understanding belief, understanding willingness, understanding inventory, understanding my moral thing, understanding uh, honesty and sharing and all these things. It was building a cognitive model of linguistic control that gave me a sense uh, that I was mastering a condition that by definition I was powerless over. And as I had been around for a long time, I had actually been given the information that no one ever recovers control, and we're never cured of this condition. So this put me in direct, like a kind of collision that I had a psychological strategy for managing what I perceived my alcoholism and addiction to be that put me at odds with the nature of what it actually was. That was a problem. So I didn't know any better. And it took me a long, long time to suspect that there was a problem there. The only way that I came to understand and guess that there was and then go hunting for what the problem might be was in living in a state where I was working my recovery in a sort of cognitive modality and found that the longer I stayed sober, the more I felt I needed to manage in my life, which is a very strange situation. And I never resolved the foundational underlying fear. And I think that was because I looked at God, I looked at faith, I looked at all these things also from a sense that because they are words, it is possible for me to get an understanding of them and perceive in a cognitive modality. So instead of proceeding like getting a sense of what faith is beyond my understanding, I resolved to convert all the language into an understanding modality because that kind of control and acquisition mentality and winning and ascension and building and conquering and all that kind of stuff was so deeply ingrained in me that it was the only way of survival I'd ever known. The nice slash horrible thing was that the collision with my aphasic experience, combined with continued meaning without words because of my autism, gave me a very unique perspective of my own personal experience. And as I continued to survive that and come through brain rehab and find that I could get along without uh, always trying to strive to get back to the person that I was, I began to experience awareness in myself and of the world around me from a place that couldn't take part in context. It was playing a role in my feelings, my sensations, my beliefs, and my thoughts, as well as my relationships, my sense of purpose, belongingness, recovery, etc. And so it was really in trying to reconcile the opening myself to the authenticity, being honest with myself about what my actual experience was in a recovery mode, that drove me to recognize that no context that existed could apply to the experience. So if the only mode for recovery remained in that cognitive mode, then my recovery was going to take me this way to maintain cognitive control. And my growing authenticity regarding the awareness of my own experience, which is growing and deepening all the time, was going to take me over here into something that I'd never found words for. Eventually, I hit on the idea that it's possible that not only was I powerless over alcohol and drugs behaviorally, cognitively, and spiritually, but that my understanding, my mode of processing was also inherently alcoholic and addicted. Therefore, I would never be able to master and build a recovery life founded on beginning with an understanding of my condition, because the tool itself was completely run through with the problem. And I can't use a problem to solve the problem. It's like a person trying to lift himself by his bootstraps and levitate or something. There's nothing to push against. So because any solution I build with the problem will have the problem as part of every step. And I'll get to whatever the solution might be, and it will have the problem all through it in a way that's invisible to me, because I'm inside believing my own mind, thinking I have a working understanding. That happened to be false. So most of traditional recovery I had to let go of because it didn't work for me in my situation. I resolved to see what my recovery would look like, my alcoholism, my addiction would look like, from the perspective that I am irretrievably alcoholic and addicted. And it's even my understanding is that way, so that it becomes a fixed point in my consciousness. It becomes an unsolvable, unchangeable fact. Well, the beautiful thing about that is that in a world where the outside world is changing all the time, and my relationship, learning how to relate again to myself, is a work in progress all the time, and there's no medical science to help me, no community or any of these things, and every day I change outside and inside. There were no fixed points in my life. There was no paradigm. There was no apparatus. And so it turned, like, very gradually, it occurred to me that at least knowing that I am powerless, I become alcoholic in a way that I can't resolve my own understanding, gave me a fixed point. And then if I accepted that, the beautiful thing about accepting not being able to change it in any way, accepting it as a fact, as I rested with that experience, even though initially it freaked me out, it immediately brought up, I had to face the physiological consequences of that realization and acceptance had on me, on a somatic level, my body, the feelings it brought up, the thoughts and the beliefs. And I found that it was very threatening to me to have an awareness of myself that I was powerless over, and so then I had to deal with those feelings. If I accepted the alcoholism and the addiction as a fact that I couldn't fix, then it became a grounded place from which to re-understand all the kinds of aspects of myself that had a problem with it, because the alcoholism became the fact, and if the problems with it were therefore out of line with that, they were the parts of me that I thought worked, and they had brought me to inevitable death from alcoholism and addiction, and it let me flip the script. And it let me have a grounded place inside having a problem, making a space for it, to re-understand myself and outgrow the ego inflation. Walk there, do an inventory, and begin examining the other parts of myself that I was delusional about, that only I could see when I leveraged it, whatever I thought I believed about myself, against the absolute fact of my alcoholism and my addiction and my inability to change it, even with understanding. I hope that was a good video. Bye.